Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we have on a guest. We have on Nicolas Deswarte, and you are the CMO of Thiga. What is so special about what we're going to be talking about today is it goes to the very foundation of the growth and alignment that we have inside of our companies. And Nicolas, you've taken things to a whole new level, which I'm going to let you explain. But the bottom line is we're going to talk about how to create alignment between your ICP and your go-to-market strategy. And not just create the alignment, but make it really simple, really straightforward, really easy to act on. It's one thing to get that information. It's another to translate it and make sure that the entire organization is ready to take action on it for growth. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. But before we dig in and get started, I'd love to give you a minute or so here to give us a little bit more on your background.
Yeah, so thank you, Steve, for hosting me today. Really exciting to talk about these awesome topics. Regarding my background, I started my career as a product manager 12 years ago. This was really related to the ICP and discovering your customers in terms of usage. So I've learned how to discover my users. And then ultimately, I bring it back to my marketing role. Now that I'm a CMO, I'm keeping this methodology and bringing back to the ICP and to frame my go-to-market strategy. So that's the point for today.
You know what, Nicholas, what I'd love to do is I'd love to start out by getting your point of view on why you feel the foundation to growth in the business is by being customer centric, understanding your ICP, bringing that into the marketing, but then bringing that in and helping it translate into action steps for the rest of the organization.
In fact, as a marketer, I think you are obsessed by your market, and basically you are obsessed by finding the right audience and triggering them the right message. What the best to know more and being in the kitchen with your market and discover and talk to your customers. So I think all is about knowing your customers to set your go-to-market strategy.
And you take it to all new levels. So in our previous conversations, you said, Steve, I make it a goal to talk to a customer at least once every week. When most CMOs come into a new role, and I've interviewed a lot of CMOs, part of the playbook is we get on the phone or an online call like this, and we just have a conversation with customers. We do it 10, 15, 20 times, but then it stops because we have our role as a CMO. We have a lot to do.
Yeah.
But your point of view is it should never stop.
No.
You should always be doing this. Why?
I used to call this is my client culture. This is absolutely strange. For example, when I joined the company, I had a meeting with the sales team. And the first question I asked them is, who in your clients is your buddy, where you have a great relationship together? And you can introduce myself, or I can pop into your next meeting and give me just 15 minutes. And I will introduce myself saying that today I have nothing to sell. I would like to know more about them. For example, what is the key topic that's stopping you from sleeping in your professional career? And talk to me about that. What's your struggles? Where is your pain? In an ideal world, how you will be able to solve this pain? Give me some more about that. So first of all, the sales guy will tell you, man, you're crazy. Yes, to reply, don't worry, I will not do your job. I'm the marketer, you are the sales, and we have different positions. But I just would like to know more about this person. Being in the kitchen with this person, know more about their digital life, which kind of applications they're using. This is here more to know their digital culture, if they are more on the traditional side or if they are innovators, super geek, etc. And that's pretty much it. When you are popping into a sales meeting saying that I have nothing to sell, generally people are super keen to talk to you just because they will talk about their position, their routines, and their struggle. So people who are passionate are super keen to talk about it. Don't be afraid to go and pop into the meetings and just say that, let's know each other's. That's the point. That's all.
Tell me a story a little bit about, because I would agree that the sales team would look at you and go, you're freaking crazy, right? After you've done this, what are the kind of conversations you're having with sales about why that really worked well? Or what's their impression after having you come into their meeting and do that? Do they thumbs up, think it's good, that was horrible, I never want to do that again? What's their impression, the sales group people?
So first of all, usually they told me, hey, your approach is really cool, is really nice, and he's really focusing on them and not on your products or not on your objectives ultimately. So I think this is the first thing that pop to their mind when they're listening to me talking to their clients. But then the real goal of that is not really to feed the sales teams with those learnings. Obviously, this is super important for us to understand everything. But on my POV, every position into the company who are facing the customers should know those learnings and apply them right after. Just to create an alignment using the same vocabulary, using the same way to talk about the things. And that's how we are bringing also and feeding the brand based on those product learnings and selling and marketing aspects. That's the key for me when you've got learnings from your customers.
So I have 5 questions I want to ask you based on all this. But the first one is, why do you keep doing it? Let's say you've done that 15 times, 20 times, 25 times. Why do you want to keep going more?
I also have my personal questions really related to the hot news I have to tackle and my objectives as a marketer. I'm jumping into the meeting and saying, okay, today I would like to talk about this topic, this very specific topic. Let me know how you are handling that, how you are managing that. Or I'm asking also two different questions. What your team would like to change if they have a Magistics?
That's a good question.
These questions brings a lot on the table. I also starting the conversation simply, what is the pain and how do you think my company will be able to solve your problem? It's better if it is real prospect that never had a demo or never see your products or things like this, because they are really bringing on the table their ultimate wish.
I've never heard that kind of a question before, but what I love it is because in a sales conversation, it's all about here's what we can do for you, right? It's never what do you think we could do for you. That's an amazing turn on the table. I love that. So, all right, you have these conversations on a regular basis because there's a never-ending, insatiable appetite for learning that we need. How does this, from a global perspective, and I want to dive deeper into this, how does this feed not only marketing, how does this feed the entire go-to-market strategy of the company?
So once I've got these learnings, usually we have monthly routines into the company. So here at Thiga, we're doing monthly all-ends meetings. So everyone is joining a meeting room, and this is broadcasted through a Google Meet or other Visio conference. And then just asking my CEO to give me 5 to 10 minutes just to expose the learnings I had for this month. This has to be really focusing on the actual priority of the organization and your company. And then generally, I'm using 5 bullet points. So this month, I've learned in terms of marketing and client facing. Here is how this will translate. So that could be an image, that could be a catchline kind of sentence that you should use in every single interactions you could have with someone on the market. When I say someone on the market, so that could be a prospect, that could be a client, but that also could be a talent for hiring purpose and a client for customer success. Every person who is talking to the market, never forget that your candidates and your next partners could be tomorrow your clients.
Here's a huge takeaway for what you just said there is as marketers, we think all the time about learning about our customers and then translating that into demand gen campaigns, sales enablement materials, things like that. What I heard you say is you're actually call it a campaign, whatever it is, but you are thinking very specifically about how I'm going to communicate this. I have messages internally. My first audience is my company. And if I don't do a good job translating that internally, then how are we going to, as an organization, serve our customers? Is that a good takeaway that you spend time
Absolutely.
thinking specifically about how to translate and communicate?
Absolutely. It's what I used to call, I would like to be the voice of the market.
There is a lot of CMOs that I have on this podcast that talk to me about imposter syndrome and legitimately earning the right to have a seat at the table as a C-suite executive. If you have the voice of the market, you have the voice of your customers, your ICP, that gives you the most powerful voice at the table because they are the highest authority. And who else has that voice? It's not sales, right? Sales has those conversations all the time, but just like you said, they're having a very different kind of conversation. And actually, Gong who records sales conversations said that actually the rep talks in those meetings 2/3 to 3/4 of the time.
Mhm.
And they're talking about us, not about them. They're not learning. They're not getting that voice of the market, right? So I think that's just things that I'm thinking about here. Now, one of the things that you said before we got on to the recording was that your team does a masterful job of having meetings where there is immediate actionable, very simple, straightforward, but immediately actionable, like leave this meeting, I know what to do kind of things. Tell us about how you orchestrate that and what you're doing.
So, as I said, you have to be really simple, straightforward in your communications and give some examples more than ever. There's also a challenge. In fact, we are using Notion, the Notion platform, to gather and to put all those learnings available for all the company. And we also printing out a simple sheet with 2 or 3 bullet points. Who is this client? What I've learned and how can I use this learning on my daily routine? And this is printed and stick on the wall where on the living place, etc., where everyone could see this kind of learnings. So actually, we've got maybe 100 little sheets stick on the wall just to have and to show the learnings. And it's also a way to avoid the Notion syndromes with tons of Notion pages that nobody will read. When you interact with your different stakeholder from the company, this is a message that you always have to bring on the table. Remind you that I had this conversation with this person. We've learned that we can do this way, but not that way. Remember that and stick to that.
Because this is one of the things that learning management, content management programs, companies, they try to take all the things, the learnings, the materials, the enablement materials, like all these things, this constant learning program, if it doesn't get translated into something that's actionable from that meeting, but also, what about 3 months from now? This subject that we talked about, and how you balance and prioritize that, because you're learning all the time and just getting lots of times sales to read the materials we put together for them, right, is a challenge. How do you combat that challenge?
As I said, repeating again and again, checking also at the final stage of the sales process, reviewing the proposal and make sure that we are all aligned with the marketing and the sales proposals. It's also sometimes creating some documents for them, for the sales teams, to make sure that everything is covered in terms of branding aspect, benefits that we would like to put up front on this proposal. Marketing teams has to be really close from the sales team. So for example, here we have weekly meetings, sales and marketing. And then we are sharing those learnings, obviously, the hot news that we are going to have, and they are bringing their challenge that they have on their actual pipelines. You have to set this relationship with the sales and basically all the people who are facing the market, clients, customers, talents, etc. This is super important. And this is also something that sometimes marketers are forgetting. There is no marketing and sales teams.
Right.
There's business team. We should all focus on the same persona, on the same things, our clients, and our market. So that's
Yes.
why it's important for me to be positioned at the voice of the market, sharing all those informations to everyone who is in contact, direct contact with the market.
So again, I have 5 questions, but here's the most important one. Because you are having these kinds of conversations on a regular basis with your ICP, with your customers, one of the biggest challenges in B2B companies is alignment, not only on the definition of the ICP, the deep understanding, the why, to the point where there was a study and it showed that on average, just on the definition of the ICP between marketing and sales, it was that 16% of sales and marketing teams have alignment. When you are providing this voice of the market, you are basically representing the voice of your prospects, your ICP. What does that do for alignment? How does that help alignment?
In fact, this one is simple, in my opinion. We have company objectives. We all have to be set to reach those kind of objectives, the company objectives. We have to be all aligned and all moving forward with the same messages, the same way to talk about the product, the same way to talk about them. And then if we are all aligned from marketing, from branding, marketing, sales, as well as customer success, there's a branding effects behind that. So you are serving your brands as well as your sales pipeline and obviously your market. So this is how you can create the alignment through the company objective and being all aligned, all setted to reach those objectives. We have a common objective. Let's go all together and work all together to reach it. That's the way I think.
We've talked a lot about the teams and the go-to-market teams. As an executive of the company, you're in board meetings and you're getting questions like, how are we doing on the quota this year or this month, this quarter? And how's next quarter looking? How are we going to wrap up the year? You're the one that's holding the voice of the market in these meetings. How does this translate to an executive board level and the kind of conversations? Because as a C-suite executive, you have your functional role as a marketer. You also have an executive role that's responsible for the strategic planning and growth of the company overall. How does this impact your executive role and the other executives?
In fact, as a company, you have a mission, and the mission is to make the things different for your market. So when it comes to big decisions and big alignments, I used to take some examples. All the sheets that are on the wall are bringing on the table with the executive committee and say, okay, we have a lot to do on this kind of market. I don't know, rolling out this kind of features, going into this new market. We have to go into this new orientation, the new challenge, just because there's a lot of demand on the markets. I'm bringing it back on the executive committee through example and through tangible elements.
You said something before we started recording today. You said, by doing this and constantly having these conversations, you said it helps me develop more trust in my own decisions.
Yeah.
Does that translate then to more trust that as an executive level, strategically growing this business, that everyone has more trust in the decisions that you're making?
Yeah, it's just erasing the questions we may have in an executive committee. We have a questions. I potentially have an answers because I already has these questions through the market to my contacts and to the potential customers of prospects. I had the answer. Let's try and test it out and roll out the offer on a strategic point of view. Let's go for this and test it out.
And everybody has trust in that, at least trying that. Doesn't mean it's going to be correct every single time and we're going to fail or we're going to learn from that, but you're giving trust in here's an educated guess at what's going to make sense and what's going to help us grow versus everybody's opinion. Because we've all been in executive board meetings where there's 10 different opinions going around the table. There's only one opinion that really matters, and that's the opinion of the customer.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm always talking for the customers and not myself as a CMO.
Right. You've already talked about a lot about how you do these things, but if you just could say, hey, the challenge of getting this kind of information on an ongoing basis, what are the best practices in staying customer centric, or I would even call customer obsessed? What do you think are the best practices in order to do that?
First of all, you have to work with the sales team or to find the best person to talk to. The relationship should be great. They should be happy about your products if they are already using your products, or they should have a good image at some point of your company and your products. So the first step is to make a good selection of who you will talk to. Second, you have your own objective into this conversation. So you can try to orient the way you will frame the conversations by simple questions. Today, I would like to talk about this kind of topic. How do you manage that? Or you are asking them what is actually the main pain you are having and how, in the ideal world, you would like to solve this kind of stuff. That's great. But I have an example that sometimes you have to balance those kind of feedback. I was working for a fintech company, and the main struggle we had from our prospect and customers was regarding Excel, Microsoft Excel. Just because it's a huge source of errors, it is painful. This is not dynamic. You have to spend a lot of time into that to set your templates, etc., and ultimately get your reports. As a fintech company, we wanted to solve this kind of pain. And so we've launched a massive digital campaign against Excel. So you have banners, search engine, SEO, SEM, content against Microsoft Excel. We were super happy about this key message. We spent a lot of money onto that. But the fact is, 1 week after the launch of this campaign, that was a real fail. Why was it a real fail? Just because I was focusing on CFOs as a target, but in fact, CFO by themselves will never quit Excel. On every single tool they have, they are extracting the data and put it into an Excel sheet, just the data by themselves. This is how they used to work. So you can fight against Excel. What with feedback that was Excel is my pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's good also to talk to your customers, but it's also important to see how they are working on a daily basis.
Yes. I got to tell you something. I want to talk another 2 hours because I got enough questions for that. But what I'd love to do is ask one last question. And that is, we've talked about a lot here. If there was one thought that you wanted to leave the audience, if they retained anything, this is what you would want them to retain. What would that be?
Simple. If tomorrow you are meeting one of your potential clients, I think you should be super proud to heard that your product is the number one product that he is using. So to make it happen, you have to exactly know how is you want to use your product, who you will be able to recommend on your product, and obviously how your product really change his life, his professional life. So if you want that, just talk to your customers to know more about them.
I love it. We got to raise that up on the priority list. That can't just be something we do in the playbook in the first 60 days or something, talk to a bunch of customers, and then we get it. So, for such great words of wisdom, I know there are going to be people that have more questions here. Would it be appropriate if we gave a link to your LinkedIn profile so people could reach out and ask questions?
With a lot of pleasure.
Fantastic. Well, Nicolas, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I can just feel the passion right behind what you're talking about here. So I can only imagine how it translates to success inside the company. Thank you. Thank you for all your words of wisdom today.
Thank you to you, Steve. Absolutely awesome to be part of your podcast. And if anything pops and if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. That would be awesome.